Hello, all of you. I'm resuming from where I left in the last class. I was discussing the era of one party dominance, the second chapter of your NCRT, class 12th, Politics in India since Independence. So, there we already saw that Congress was in a very strong position for the initial 3 decades after independence, that is during 50s, 60s, and to a large extent till 70s. Actually, to put it precisely, it lasted till 1967. In 71, in 70s, Indira Gandhi was defeated. She made a comeback, and ever since after that, coalition era started, and Congress kept on going and coming until 2014, when BJP actually got a clear majority after 30 years. But these are not the things that are in the scope of the present text that we are about to discuss. So let us confine ourselves to the NCRT, and I'll start with where I left. I can see in the last video that I was talking about a party. Just here's your book that I have shared with all of you. This is till here we have discussed till Socialist Party. Now it says the nature of Congress dominance. And India is not the only country to have experienced the dominance of one party. If we look around the world, we find many other examples of one party dominance, but there is a crucial difference between there and the Indian experience. In the rest of the cases, the dominance of one party was ensured by compromising democracy. Let me explain this to you. Post Second World War ended in 1945. August 1945, when atom bombs were dropped, the second one on Nagasaki. Japan had to surrender. Hitler was killed. He committed suicide, as is. There are multiple interpretations, but I'll go by what our government says, that Hitler committed suicide. Mussolini was hanged upside down by his own people in Italy. So the Axis powers lost, and the allies, the British, the Americans, the Russians, the French, who were fighting the Hitlers and Mussolinis, and General Tuzo was heading the Imperial Japan. So these people also became very weak because you fought a world war with the likes of Hitler, Mussolini, and Tuzo. So there were not much resources left with you. So gradually, they started leaving the colonies. European countries and the United States of America started to withdraw from the colonial countries, like most of the Asia and Africa. Now, all these countries which became independent after Second World War, all of them saw the dominance of one party. In almost all these countries, the the freedom movement was carried on by some party. Like in India, it was Congress, and that very party came to the power in almost all these countries. But there is a significant difference, that in countries like Cuba, in Cuba there was Fidel Castro, but Fidel Castro did not allow any other leader to grow. In India, Jawaharlal Nehru won the election. The communists also won. We have seen that in last chapter, that communist had the second largest vote share. There were other parties like TDP. There was Janta Party, which came later on. So the thing is, in 1952, Shama Prasad Mukherjee formed Bharatiya Jansangh. So these parties were there. Congress or Nehru did not ban them. Fidel Castro banned all other parties. After Fidel Castro, his brother Raul Castro became the uh, everything, Alpha and Omega in Cuba. Now both the Castros are dead. So in rest of the country, like China Mao Zedong, again 1949, Mao Zedong chased away the Chinese monarch Chiang Kai-shek to what today we know as Taiwan. So it became Maoist China. Today, the China that we see today is Maoist China. Just to add one very interesting thing, as I have mentioned, Taiwan, uh, there was this monarch named Chiang Kai shek. And in 1949, Mao Zedong kicked him out and he escaped to what today is known as Taiwan. So the remaining China is the People Republic China that we know today, which was Mao's China. Taiwan president was invited to Joe Biden's swearing in inauguration ceremony when Biden was taking oath for president. So it was after some good 30 years that White House has invited someone from Taiwan. So just an interesting thing which I recalled when I mentioned China and Taiwan. So all these countries in Cuba, Castro, in China, Mao, okay, in Syria also there were some other people. So all these things in Egypt, Belarus, Myanmar, everywhere one party and one leader. In India also Congress was dominating, but the difference is Congress was dominating through democracy. People were voting for them. So Mexico, South Korea, Taiwan also became one party dominant. What distinguished the dominance of Congress party in India from these cases? It happened under this is what I mentioned. It happened under a democratic considerations. Like for example, Congress was fighting the election and winning those elections. Mao and Castro's were not fighting elections. There were no elections. They were the president and prime minister and everything. So many party contested election and they could not defeat Congress for till 1967. Now there is another party, a revolutionary party, and it was later named as Institutional Revolutionary Party. These things you can read on your own. I'm not going into explaining these things because these things are asked in in UPSC prelims or in CBSE 12th board objective questions. Because this year I remember, uh, not this year, last year when boards happened, these questions came. There were some few objective questions. Who founded which party? This I'll explain you. Baba Sahib Bhimrao Ambedkar, he was the leader of anti-caste movement and founder of Independent Labour Party, later founded Scheduled Caste Federation, formation of Republican Party. These are the three parties which Baba Sahib Bhimrao Ambedkar founded: Independent Labour Party, Scheduled Caste Federation, and a Republican Party. So there might be a question which were the parties founded by Baba Sahib Ambedkar, and there can be 3 to 4 options. So these are the correct options. I have highlighted it here. 3 parties were there. However, he could not win any election. Dr. Ambedkar fought 3 elections and lost his deposit in all the 3 elections. But Jawaharlal Nehru was campaigning against Ambedkar when he was fighting the elections. That's an altogether different story. And he was member of Viceroy Executive Council during the Second World War, chairman of the Constituent Assembly. This we all know. And minister in Nehru's first cabinet, he was the law minister. He resigned because of difference over Hindu Code Bill, 1951, and adopted Buddhism in 56. And he passed away. He died in 56 also. Another towering figure, Dr. Baba Sahib Ambedkar. And this is Rafi Ahmad Kidwai. It's not, no one is going to, I don't think that it would be a proper question on Rafi Ahmad Kidwai, either in UPSC prelims or 12th board. The root of this extraordinary success of the Congress party goes back to the legacy of freedom struggle. I told you that because Congress was not a party, it was a movement. So Congress was seen as an inheritor of national movement. That these are the ones who fought the British and gave us independence. Many leaders who were in the forefront of that struggle were now contesting election as Congress candidates. Yes, the prominent leaders from all the parts of India, they were given tickets to fight the election. So everyone was voting for them. The Congress was already a very well organized party. In fact, if you read modern Indian history, I think it is there in your themes of Indian history NCERT books of class 12th, that district planning committees was formed by Gandhiji way back in 1920s. So the roots of Congress in India are very deep. Okay, so it was a very well organized. That's what they are saying. That it was, the book is saying that it was a very well organized party, and by the time other parties could even think of a strategy, Congress had already started the campaign. Nehruji was leading from the front, and Nehruji was a charismatic leader, you know, a very towering figure. So who could compete against Nehru? Okay, many parties were formed only around independence or after that. So Congress had the first of the blocks advantage. What is the first of the blocks advantage? It means first, the one who comes moves first gets the advantage. So if there is a race and 10 people are standing, suppose 3 people are standing in the race, and this one moves ahead, so he will have the edge. This is called first of the block advantage. If there's a race going on and one person already before the beginning of race moves first, so he will get first of the block advantage. This was the situation with Congress party in India during first few elections of India after independence. So independent of the party, it had spread across the length and breadth of the country. In every part of India you had a Congress office, and Congress was a national movement, as I told you. So even if you go to a small town today, any part of India, I'm sure you will come across a Congress office. There will be posters of Gandhiji, Nehruji, Indiraji inside. There will be a small uh, chalk, we say in Hindi, which is painted of saffron green and white, the plinth, and then you have a flag which is being hosted on 15th August and 26th January. So these things date back to independence. During independence, these things were done. So and that's why in every small town you will come across such Congress offices. You know, so that's why I'm saying that the root of Congress in India is very very deep. They might have been defeated electorally, but still the old people, if you talk to anyone who is 70 plus, I doubt they are against Congress. Maybe youngsters are not, because youngsters maybe are siding with BJP and Modi. But then old people of these times, they are very much with pro Congress, because in their eyes they are like that. Yes, they are the ones who gave us freedom, Gandhi ji and Nehru ji. Okay, so Congress was also a social and ideological coalition. Now, what is this social ideological coalition? Try to understand. Uh, Congress started as a very elite party. I'm just summing up what is given here. It started as a very elite party, but this eliteness was like they were only educated and rich people, very well educated barristers and journalists and professors. When moderates AOUM and WC Banerjee formed Congress, but slowly it started to widen its base. What do you mean by widening its base? It started accommodating people from other backgrounds. So farmers came, workers came, small time entrepreneurs or businessmen came. Okay. So not only elites, but not so elite also became part of Congress. And it was often contradictory. Contradictory means that how can these two groups be together? Like peasant and the industrialist, urban dwellers and villagers, workers and owners, middle, lower, and upper class and caste all found space in Congress, because Congress had something or the other for everyone. If you are a worker, if you are a farmer, if you are a middle class, if you are a lower class, if you are a high caste or so called low caste, you had a space in Congress which you could call your own. That yes, something in the party is for me. I can devote my time and effort with the Congress, and something I'll get in return. So this is how it was forming on. So its leadership also expanded beyond the upper caste and upper caste class professional to agriculture-based leaders on with a rural orientation. So earlier, as I told you, there were only elite people, the leaders. Now, people from not so elite background also started coming to the leadership rank, to the highest position in Congress. So it became a rainbow-like social coalition. Please remember this term, rainbow-like social coalition. See, India is a very diverse country. If you go to South India, you will see that people speak different language, they eat different type of food. In North India also, if you travel from one state or the other, the I told you language changes. Even Hindi is spoken differently in different parts of North Indian states. So that the I'm trying to tell you that India is a very diverse country. So a party which claims to represent all the Indians needs to be as diverse as India. That's why there were all the class and caste and religion and languages were accommodated into the Congress rank and file. So these group merged their identity within the Congress. Very often they did not continue to exist within the Congress as group and individual holding different beliefs. In this sense, the Congress became an ideological coalition also, because people started to think differently, but everyone was thinking differently under the same banner of Congress. It accommodated a revolutionary and the pacifist. Pacifist means someone who believes in non-violence. So revolutionaries were also there, and pacifist Gandhiji, yes, they were also there. Conservative and radical. Conservative means who likes things as they are. Radical who wants to change things. Okay, extremists and moderate. The right, left, and the shades of center. So all people had a space in Congress. Congress was a platform for numerous group interests and even political parties to take part in national movement. In pre-independence days, many organizations and parties with their own constitution and organization structure were allowed to exist within Congress. So before India became free, different groups with their own document called, which they called constitution at that time, came, like if there is a farmer group, so they will come that, see, we are farmer group, we want to join Congress, this is the name of our group, and this is the constitution that we have, make it a part of Congress. Congress would say, okay, come in. They did not deny, because they knew that if we want everyone to take part in freedom struggle, we need to accommodate different people. And everyone was coexisting. They were not fighting each other. They were fighting the British. That was the beauty of Congress of those days. Now here comes the Communist Party of India. Now I'll just submit what happened. You can read this. I'll tell you something more also, which is written here. A.K. Gopalan, if you study Indian Constitution after class 12th, you will come across a very famous case, A.K. Gopalan case. In 1917, Bolshevik Revolution happened in Russia under Vladimir Ulyanov Lenin. It was the first time that the teachings of Karl Marx died in 1883, his teachings were given a practical form in Russia by Lenin. Earlier, before 1917, Russia was ruled by a monarch who was called Tsar, Czar. Now, Tsars were gone and Lenin was there. Lenin implemented Karl Marx teachings, Marxism or socialism. Now, don't expect me to explain these two things. These are things that one studies in colleges if you take political science optional. So if we meet sometime in your college or for your civil services preparation later on, I would love to do that, explain these things. But for now, considering this NCRT, even if you are preparing for UPSC, you have to stick with this NCRT now. So I'll not explain what is Marxism and socialism. Lenin implemented these Marxist and socialist ideas in Russia. It became USSR, Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. And in 1925, there was an organization which was called Third Comintern. Third Comintern took place, where followers of Karl Marx from all parts of planet were called. So from India, M.N. Roy went. I think somewhere his name must be mentioned. Come on, they are talking about CPI and they are not mentioning M.N. Roy. Actually, later on, M.N. Roy became very bitter critique of Marx. Anyway, so M.N. Roy from India went there, participated in Third Comintern, shared platform with Vladimir Lenin, came back and formed the Communist Party of India. The purpose of Third Comintern was to form communist parties in all countries and bring a revolution in those countries the way Lenin brought in Russia. So with this purpose, Communist Party of India was formed in 1925. Now from 35, communists worked mainly from within the fold of Indian National Congress, because this Communist Party was not very much noted by people. So they also joined Congress, and they were like that, we also want to throw out the British. So several communists joined the Congress. And then unlike other non-Congress parties, the CPI, the Communist Party of India, was a well-oiled party machinery and dedicated cadre at the time of independence, because it was formed in 25. They joined Congress. They learned how Congress is functioning. So by 1941, 42, 45, or 47, CPI also became a very good party. That's why your NCRT in first chapter says that the second highest vote share after Congress in the first three general election, I'm quoting from first chapter, belong to the CPI, because they were also there since 1925. People now knew about them, and uh, they opposed soon after independence. This party, that is CPI, thought that the transfer of power in 47 was not through true independence. So they said this is not true independence. We want true independence, and they were encouraged to violent uprisings in Telangana. Now Telangana became a state very late in 2000. It's been 10 years that Telangana became a state, but actually bill was passed 10 years back. Telangana became a new state few years back, I think 3 4 years back. So in that part, Telangana was still a part of Andhra Pradesh uh, in 47. So they started a very violent struggle, and they did not got many support because people were still with Congress. They were like, no, we have won the independence. Nehruji is PM. Why are you telling us this is not independence, real independence, or we need a revolution? So then communists thought that this is not how it is going to work. People are very much emotionally attached with Congress. So they were forced to rethink their position. And then in 1951, the Communist Party abandoned the path of violent revolution. I have told this in the last video what communists favor. Please watch it if you have not, if you fail to understand why Communist Party thinks about violent revolution. In 51, they gave up this thought and they said we will participate in the elections. So in the first general election, CPI won 16 seats and it had a strong base in Andhra Pradesh, Bengal, Bihar, and Kerala. So these were the leaders. And then there was a split in the CPI in 64. The pro-Soviet, the pro-USSR faction became CPI, and the pro-China function, China people became CPIM, that is Communist Party of India, Marxist. Now see, they both were Indian parties, but CPI was more aligned with Russians, and CPIM was, still it is, more aligned with the Chinese. So on this basis, who will be pro-Russia and who will be pro-China? A division occurred, CPI and CPIM. Okay, so both this party exist till today. They exist. They have won 6 seats in 2019 Lok Sabha elections. Imagine during Nehruji's time, they were the second largest vote share, and now they have got just 6 seats. So this is some Singhasan Marathi movie link given here. It must be about some same post political type of thing it is. You may choose to watch it or ignore it. So some of these, like the Congress Socialist Party, later separated from Congress and became opposition parties. So many parties, I told you, many people with their baggage, and their constitution joined Congress during freedom struggle. Now English are gone, Britishers are gone. So who will rule India? So elections are being held. So many people who were into Congress, they came out, like this Socialist Party. They separated from Congress and became opposition. So we see now opposition is also being formed. Still, they cannot defeat Congress. So the coalition-like character of the Congress gave it an unusual strength. Congress itself was like a coalition. A coalition accommodates all those who join it. Therefore, it has to avoid any extreme position and strike a balance on almost all issues. Compromise, inclusiveness, ability to accommodate others. So, this strategy put the opposition in a difficulty. Anything that the opposition wanted to say would also find a place in the program and ideology of the Congress. Try to understand. If communists are saying that we want provision for workers, someone in Congress is already saying that yes, we want provision for workers. If maybe some other party, party X, is saying that we want provision, good working condition or subsidized electricity for farmers, someone within Congress is already saying that. Okay, so that's why we are seeing these lines, that whatever the opposition wanted to say was already there in Congress. So that's why it was an ideology, a coalition. Congress itself was like a coalition from within. Secondly, in a party that has the nature of a coalition, there is a greater tolerance of internal difference and ambitions of various groups. So despite their differences, several groups coexisted, several leaders lived and made Congress more strong. And because they knew that there is no other option, we have to be with Congress, and Congress is the one which is going to win the election. People are were emotionally connected with Congress of those times. So these groups inside the party were called faction. Faction actually means grouping. So there were a farmer faction, there was a pro-industrialist faction, there was a worker faction, there was a middle class faction, there was a small businessman faction. So many factions: South Indian faction, North Indian faction, West Indian, Northeast Indian faction. Everyone had a role in Congress. So that's why Congress is said to be coalitional nature of the Congress. We say it. Some of these factions were based on ideological consideration, but very often these factions were rooted in personal ambitions and rivalry. So yes, they were ideologically, people were opposed to each other, and most of all, they were like that. I want more power. I want to personal ambitions. That why he, why not me? Why she, why not me? So this also became a reason for factionalism in Congress. Now see the Bharatiya Janata Party. Actually, it is the predecessor of Bharatiya Janata Party, the BJP, that is Bharatiya Janasangh. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee, it is on his name that Mukherjee Nagar in Delhi is named. Mukherjee Nagar, anyone who lives in Delhi must be aware of this. It's near Kingsway Camp, GTB Nagar metro station, 2 kilometers from there. So, Shyama Prasad Mukherjee was the health minister in Nehru's cabinet. He resigned in 1951. Why he resigned? Because of Article 370. Because Nehru ji gave Sheikh Abdullah a separate Article 370 to be implemented in Kashmir. So Shyama Prasad Mukherjee said, why? And he said that एक देश में दो संविधान, दो विधान और दो प्रधान नहीं चलेंगे. I'll translate it. In one country, एक दो संविधान. Kashmir had a different constitution until Article 370 was scrapped on 5th of August 2019. दो संविधान, दो विधान. Because of Article 370, the laws of Kashmir were slightly different from laws of India. Any law which Government of India made was not applied to Jammu and Kashmir until 5th of August 2019. That is the day Article 370 was null and void. Though Pradhan, Kashmir also had a prime minister. So this was the war cry given by Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee. He left Congress. He resigned from the health minister post of Nehru's cabinet, and he formed what we are known as Bharatiya Janasangh. So they were also close to RSS, the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. And Jansangh was different from other parties in terms of ideology. What it talks about one country, one culture, one nation, and believe that country could become modern, progressive, and strong on the basis of Indian culture and traditions. So they emphasize on the Indianness. Okay, one country. He says one एक देश में एक संविधान एक विधान, one culture. Like India is having from south to north. If you travel, you will see uniformity. So that's what they're saying. It's calling it one culture, and we are one people. So if we want to make India modern and progressive, it should be not by aping the West, not by emulating the Western culture, but by emphasizing on our own culture. Okay, party called for a reunion of India and Pakistan in Akhand Bharat. Now that was a very fancy dream that there will be a united India, that is Akhand Bharat, which Pakistan will again merge with India. The party was in the forefront to agitation to replace English with Hindi as the official language of India, and also opposed to granting of concessions to religious and cultural minorities. So you know that Congress and under Nehruji gave some religious concessions to the minorities, and also to religious and cultural. Actually, there is no cultural minority. There are two types of minorities in Indian Constitution. As per the Indian Constitution, first is the sorry, religious minority. The other one is linguistic minority. So if in North India you don't know Hindi, you are a linguistic minority. I went to Hyderabad in December. So people there speak English, Telugu. They do speak Hindi, but very few. Mainly they speak Telugu. So I become a linguistic minority in any South Indian state. So some provisions are given to linguistic minority depending on the state. So they were like, no, no, these things should not be given. We all are one. So treat it as like one. And replace English with Hindi as the official language. Currently, Hindi and English both are official languages of India. There is nothing called national language. If you see Schedule 8 of the Indian Constitution, there are 22 languages there. Okay, there are South Indian languages, there are some Gujarati is there, Punjabi is there. So these 22 languages, all of them are national language. Hindi is not the national language. Hindi is the official language along with English. So party was a consistent advocate of India developing nuclear weapons. So Jansangh also used to say that yes, we need to have nuclear weapons. And interestingly, it was Atal Bihari Vajpayee in 1998 that made India a nuclear power state. Now Jansangh did not last for long. It became BJP. It metamorphosed in the form of BJP. Most of the Jansanghis joined the Bhajpa. So remained on the margins of secular politics, and it got only 3 seats in 52, 4 seats in 57. So you see, the overwhelming affinity that people of India had with Congress. And today you see the reverse. Now, Jansang became BJP, I told you. So overwhelmingly, people are attached with BJP. It is the Congress. It's not like Congress is getting 3 and 4 seats, but currently they are on 54 seats. In 2014, they were on 44 seats. So you see, now BJP is becoming mainstream. Congress is shrinking. Congress is being shut down. Earlier, that was not the case. And Jansang was confined to Hindi speaking states, Rajasthan, Madhya Delhi, UP. Okay. So these were the leaders: Deen Dayal Upadhyay, Balraj Madhok, Shyama Prasad Mukherjee. Okay. The BJP, the Bharatiya Janata Party, traces its roots to the Bharatiya Jansang. Okay. So these were the reasons. So coming back to why Congress was called an ideological coalition, there was room within the party for various factions to fight with each other, not physically, but opposing each other. So I told you, people had with different ideologies, different background, had a space, had the room in Congress. They could coexist despite their differences. So most of the state unit of Congress were made up of numerous factions. I told you there were different groups. They took different ideological position, making the Congress appear as a grand centrist party. It was neither right to right like BJP, neither left like the communist. Try to understand, BJP is politically right, communists are politically left. Congress is said to be centrist. Now, these are these terms are very elaborate. So for now, we will not go into the intimate discussions of what is right, left, and center. Just remember this: Congress is center, BJP is right, communists are left. The other parties primarily attempted to influence these factions and thereby indirectly influence policy and decision making from the margin. So there were people who had right inclination within Congress. So the Jansang would appeal to those right wing inclination. There were people who had left inclination in Congress. So the communists would try to be friendly with those group who were left in Congress. That's what is written, that other parties attempted to influence these factions. Jansang will try to influence the right faction, faction means group, and the communist will try to influence left faction within Congress. So they were indirectly influencing Congress. So they were not alternative to ruling party, neither right nor left. It was only the centrist Congress that was the ruling party. So they were pressurizing and trying to influence the Congress because they knew we cannot replace them. They are too big. But let us try to influence him maybe this much or this much or this much. However, how much depends on our effort. So the first decade of electoral competition in Congress acted both as the ruling party as well as the opposition. That is why this period of Indian politics is described as the Congress system. Because there was not one thing that existed. You see, there were people with right inclination, there were people with left inclination. Both the communists and the Jansanghis tried to influence them in the Congress. So Congress was the ruling party and Congress itself was the opposition. Anything that the opposition could think of, Congress had already thinking on it, contemplating on it. I told you earlier also. So this is why the era is called the Congress system. Now, how comes the opposition party? See this cartoon. Now, these are the opposition leaders trying to uproot this tree of Congress, and here Nehru and Maulana Abdul Kalam Azad and all the Congressies are comfortably sitting. They knew that they could not uproot it. These are the opposition. Very brilliant cartoon given here. So, how did this opposition came? Nothing given in first para except for these lines. Some of these parties played important part in 60s and 70s. So it was only after 1967 that opposition started asserting itself. All these opposition parties succeeded in gaining only a token representation in the Lok Sabha and state during the period. So there were only 2 to 3 seats that they used to get, maybe 10 or 12 seats. No one would win more than 50 seats. Congress alone used to win 350 seats, more than 350 seats in all the Lok Sabha elections. These people could not win 50 seats on their own. So Swatanta Party was there. C. Rajagopalachari, yes. C. Rajagopalachari was the first governor of Free India. Yes, it is written here. First Indian to be Governor General. When India became free, he was the first governor general. So he formed Swatanta Party. So it wanted to government to be less and less involved in controlling the economy. It believed prosperity will come through individual freedom. Now, this is again very much uh, you can remember these names also: Minu Masani, N.G. Ranga, K.M. Munshi. These people believed in free market economics. Congress, was centrist, was influenced more by the left, controlling the economy. These people said, no, economy should be left to the businessmen, not to the government. So they had no takers at that time. Okay. So this is what Swatanta Party was. They were against, just a minute, they were against land sealing in agriculture, opposed cooperative farming and state trading. What is land sealing? Land sealing means, just a minute. Land sealing means that no one can hold land more than maybe 10 acres. So that is called land sealing. Land has been sealed. An individual cannot have more than 10 acres of land. So they were against that. Anyone can have any much of any acres of land. You need to afford that land. That's what Swatanta Party would say. Cooperative farming. Cooperative farming is when several people come together and they, like, if you have a land which ends here, this is the area of your land, and from here to here different land, so both of you will come together and say, let us do farming together, our productivity will increase. This is called cooperative farming. This was influenced by the Soviet model. So they said, no, no, let people, like, I want to grow maybe rice, and maybe you want to grow aloe vera. So how will we both do together? How can be there be cooperative farming? Cooperative farming will be there when one type of crop is to be grown. So they were against imposing things, and it also opposed progressive tax regime, demanded dismantling of license regime. So this dismantling of license regime happened in 1991 when PV Narasimha Rao was the prime minister. They demanded it in 1947, way ahead of their time. Progressive tax regime. What does that mean? As your income increases, the more tax you will pay. This is what is called progressive tax. So there are tax slab. Until 5 lakh, you need to pay 10%. From 5 to 10 lakh, 20%. From 10 lakhs to 15 lakh, 30%, something like this. This is called progressive taxation. So they were against it. They are like that you are trying to discourage people from earning money. This is what they used to say. And they did not wanted non-alignment. They wanted closer ties with USA. So this was Swatanta Party. Nothing more given here. So let us come back to it. In early years, there was a lot of mutual respect between the leaders of Congress and those of the opposition. Everyone admired Nehruji. Nehruji also had a they used to greet each other. There were a basic minimum respect for everyone. And Dr. Ambedkar, Shama Prasad Mukherjee. You see, Shama Prasad Mukherjee was a right founder of Jan Sangh, but he was also there in Nehru's cabinet. Ambedkar lost the elections, I told you, but he became the law minister. So, despite their differences, these people were working together. Now, now, the kind of personal relationship with and respect for political adversaries declined after the party competition became more intense. So now we see people calling names to the prime minister. So these things are not happening. These things were not happening in Nehruji's time. But because after different parties came, the competition became very stiff, and they started, fighting and also calling names to each other. So this is the inclusive character you see here. I can identify a few people for you. Uh, this is Maulana Abdul Kalam Azad. This is Nehruji, you all know. This is C. Rajagopalachari, Sardar Patel. Uh, this guy is Shama Prasad Mukherjee, Dr. Ambedkar. The rest I need to again. It's given here. Okay, you can read from here. So party. This is Phanishwar Nath Renu. Anyone, if you can read Hindi, read Phanishwar Nath Renu's Punchlight. It's a brilliant satire, but you need to be able to read Hindi to understand that Punchlight. The name of it's a short story by Renu. Renu ji was in Bihar, and he was with the socialist and the communist. So He has written a brilliant political satire, Punchlight. You can read that. Yes, Purnia in Northeast Bihar. Mela Achal is one of his cult classic novel. That's Syama Prasad Mukherjee. He is the leader of Hindu Mahasabha, founder of Bharatiya Jansangh, resigned due to difference over relation with Pakistan, member of, and opposed to India's policy of autonomy into Jammu and Kashmir. I told you he was against 370. So this was the reason he resigned. So the ability of the Congress to accommodate all interest and all aspirant of political power steadily declined. Other parties started gaining greater significance. So other parties also became strong now. Now Congress was decreasing. The other parties were becoming stronger at the cost of Congress. So this is the entire story that we have. Any question that you fail to answer, just write comment below the this video. I will surely answer it. In our next video, I'll explain the third chapter. And if you want to answer these questions, read these questions carefully. Watch my previous video, which was the initial few pages of this chapter, and this video. So I have completed chapter 2 in 2 videos. Just listen to them, watch them, pause them. If you want to take notes. Still, if you do not understand, comment below this video. I'll definitely reply. But after doing all these things, make yourself think and look for the answer. If still you don't have, feel free to comment. See you all again in the third chapter. I'll put it this week itself, next week. Bye for now.